Guys, welcome back into another 2024 election mock. This time, it's going to be the California governor, Gavin Newsom, who right now I think is a top choice for the Democrats. He's kind of got that white boy liberal look to him. I've got him going up against Ron DeSantis, who currently is thought of as the biggest threat to Donald Trump in the Republican primaries. He's right now in second place. Gavin Newsom, I would say, is probably the leader in the Democratic field. We don't expect Joe Biden to run again. The expectation is Joe Biden will step down in early 2023. He'll get to pardon his crackhead son, and he'll say, listen, I can't do this anymore. I care about the country, whatever. Basically, the Democrats are going to get Biden out, and they will either instill someone or they'll have some sort of rigged primary like they did back in 2020. And I could certainly see the Democratic establishment choosing Gavin Newsom. He's that white boy liberal. He's a really good talker. And people have been saying, how would Newsom be the choice if he got recalled in California? Guys, the way those recalls work in California, basically only 10% of their population recalled him, and that's how it worked, and he ended up winning the recall overwhelmingly. But the reason they did it was because Newsom was out of control in California. He was acting like a dictator with the pandemic. Unfortunately, what happened with the pandemic, it enabled a lot of these governors to become dictators and really force citizens, to stay home and things like that, and use the pandemic as an excuse to have this crazy authority over people. It's disgusting. And then on the opposite side of it, Ron DeSantis is basically the complete opposite. Some people think he's a little reckless with how he handled it, but I definitely think the way he handled the pandemic is the better way in terms of the citizens. You could say he put more people in harm's way, but when you look at the overall deaths, from the pandemic based on population density, California and Florida are virtually identical. And then you compare the overall freedoms that Florida had compared to California. I am always someone that is in favor of the citizens. I'm in favor of freedom. I am a citizen, so I do support freedom, and I support the way that Ron DeSantis handled that situation during the pandemic. These are like polar opposites. You've got one guy. Really, you know who Gavin Newsom reminds me of? Trudeau. A little bit Trudeau in California. So that's this matchup. That's the whole backstory. This is a realistic matchup. I think DeSantis is the better choice for the Republicans if they want to win in 2024. A lot less polarizing than Trump. I'm sure the media, if DeSantis is the nominee for the Republicans, I'm sure CNN will be coming out the next day calling him the next Hitler. MSNBC will say, he wants to take all your rights away if you're a woman. We know they're going to do that. But I do think, in theory, at least with the independents, DeSantis would be more appealing than Donald Trump. And I still think the Trump voters would vote for DeSantis as long as Trump got in line. If he loses to DeSantis in the primaries, that could be a major hurdle for conservatives. But guys, I've been talking long enough. Let's get to the actual matchup. Nevada, I am going to give to Ron DeSantis. I think it's a state right now. It's probably polling within 5 points overall, and it's kind of an open state with Las Vegas, ththings like that. I think DeSantis wins that. Arizona, I think, is going to be more Republican in the coming election as well. Texas, I still don't view as a toss-up. We got to keep putting it on here because technically it is thought of as maybe the Democrats have a chance, but I might just stop doing it because I don't see any way the Republicans lose Texas in 2024 outside of a colossal epic failure. Maybe if Mike Pence runs. I mean, even then I think he wins it. Minnesota, I think Gavin Newsom wins that. I do think Gavin Newsom has some appeal to independent voters. Iowa, I think, is more Republican. When it comes to the Rust Belt, how I'm going to split this up, DeSantis, to me, wins Wisconsin. Newsom wins Michigan. I think Michigan is the one more liberal Rust Belt state. Ohio goes to DeSantis, and Pennsylvania goes slightly to DeSantis as well. Georgia gets back into Republican control. I've, been expecting that in 2024. The Democrats basically in 2020 ran up just crazy high numbers in those major cities, in those major counties like Atlanta, Georgia. That's how they were able to steal Georgia in 2020. I don't think that happens in 2024. I think you're going to see a lot of the smaller counties put in a higher percentage of the vote. North Carolina, I am good at, this is just a toss-up. We're so far away. It's a state like North Carolina is so tough to predict. I do think this is generally will be a close election, so I think I am going to give it to Newsom. And then when it comes to Maine, I'm going to just split up these two states, Maine and New Hampshire, personally. And then, of course, what is the major advantage if you're the Republicans with Ron DeSantis? You're getting a swing state like Florida basically guaranteed. So you are going to win that. And I think Newsom is definitely a better candidate than Biden or Kamala Harris, which is the last two candidates I've done. But overall, this is a closer election. DeSantis ends up winning due to the Florida roots, his home state. And I think if DeSantis ends up being the nominee for the Republicans, he's assuredly going to win Florida. I think Trump's going to win Florida as well. Florida is turning more Republican. We saw it in 2020 with the Cuban vote go heavily in Trump's favor, and we are going to see it in 2024, especially if DeSantis is the guy, because people in Florida, obviously there's a lot of Democrats in Florida who think he's Hitler and whatever, but more the general consensus is he's liked in Florida. They like the way he handled the pandemic. It was an open state, one of the more open states in the country, and I think that carries him over the top. But Newsom is definitely one of the Democrats' top choices right now. They're not going to have Biden. They're not going to have Kamala. I just do mock elections because it's fun, but the vice president and the current president will not be on the Democratic ticket. I think Pete Buttigieg is, if Newsom is running, I would be surprised if Buttigieg is. I think they'll go with probably either a white woman with Newsom or a minority black woman with Newsom. If similar to what they did with Biden, originally they wanted Kamala to be the nominee, but she was so bad in the debates before the primaries, they instill Biden, and then they say, listen, Biden's a white dude. To kind of even it out, we have to get, as the VP, a minority woman. And that's something they could do with Newsom, or it could just be a white woman. It just depends for Gavin Newsom. That's my opinion on what they're going to do with the president and vice president. And then with the Republicans, right now, it's very clear. There's a top two, and then it's everyone else. And we'll have to see when the actual debates take place, if anyone can make a run. Because the last time the Republicans had these primaries, we did see people like a Ben Carson, like a Rubio. They had some good debate moments. We saw Rubio, we saw Cruz trend a little bit, but it was mainly Trump pretty much had a total control of the Republican primaries when they had him back in the 2016 election. That was like 2015, whatever, before then. And then Trump becomes the nominee. But again, guys, I think the Republicans, there's going to be a collision here. If Trump somehow loses, will he accept it? If he wins, that's normal. I'm sure DeSantis, who's a career politician, will fall in line. With someone like Trump, it's going to be a little bit tougher. If he loses the Republican primary, you're going to want him to immediately, or at least within the coming days after he loses, and DeSantis is the guy on the ticket, you're going to need him to immediately announce his endorsement for Ron DeSantis for president for 2024 if you are the Republicans. That's what you would need. So this is a competitive election here, but it's a situation where, if we're talking about the way these guys, it's very interesting. Both governors, both handling the pandemic completely different. I'm always going to be in the favor of the citizens because I am a citizen. So I am pro-citizen. I'm pro-freedom. I'm not pro-government. And that's when it comes with the restrictive rights. And, unfortunately, they end up using the pandemic as an excuse to infringe on your overall rights. And, it is unfortunate. Canada is about 10 times worse than it is here in America. and it is said that many of those people actually support it, because it's like you're supporting the government actively restricting you for no real reason when you actually take a look at the numbers. But that's what happens. That's how powerful propaganda is. The media is 90% liberal, and when you have all these people saying, stay at home, lock yourself in your room, wear a mask because you're trying to make everyone safer, that will have an effect on the population, and they will think they're the ones doing a good thing, and the people fighting for freedom, they're the ones that are bad, they're the ones that are killing everyone, and that's how powerful American leftist propaganda is at this point. It is said that people are not brain dead, but they're just very naive, and they are very brainwashed by the overall national narrative, unfortunately. But guys, this is just talking. We'll see what happens with Newsom and with DeSantis. I think Newsom right now, he's got that white boy liberal swag. He's got the debates. He's got a moxie to him that obviously Joe Biden doesn't have, Kamala Harris doesn't have. So he is a guy that I would expect to see. We'll see what happens with him. I know he got recalled, but that's a whole thing. That was only 10% of the population in California. So we'll see. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.